You are listening to Curious Cat, the podcast that examines the shadowy space where science and the supernatural collide. And I'm your host, Jennifer Holtz. Join me every week as we explore what it means to be a soul in a meat suit. Welcome to Curious Cat. Today's a special Halloween bonus episode, and I'm going to be channeling the old, beautiful, amazing Art Bell episodes of Ghost to Ghost that he did on AM radio back in the day, where he told some ghost stories, and he had a few guests tell some of their ghost stories as well. They say that the last 3 days of October, the 29th, the 30th, and the 31st. And I'm talking about the mystical, magical factions out there. Call it the 13th month because the muslin between the living and the dead is so thin you can see through it. Well, let's take a direct look through the muslin together, shall we? If you're new to the show, then you don't know that I have, in the last couple seasons, revealed some spooky, supernatural things that have happened to me, including the gin at the grocery store that I encountered. Just trying to get my milk, and here was a gin. But that is probably for another day. If we stick to ghost stories, though, I have to begin with kind of a confession because there's an agreement between me and my kids that are grown adults now, but even when they were little ones, we always had some strange things that happened. Not always, but on occasion we had some strange things happen to us when we were traveling. And it was usually in the hotel room, and sometimes it was in a place that we would go to visit, like one of the California missions or even restaurants. But actually, a Hawaiian restaurant that's since been closed had some serious ghost activity. But one of our agreements when we travel, me and my kids, is that we do not talk about any ghost activity that we have felt or dealt with during a hotel stay until we've checked out of the hotel and we are on our way home. So on this occasion, we had been visiting London, and we decided to have some fun with the trip itinerary. And we stayed at two separate districts in London during the trip so that we would kind of explore two different parts of London from different home bases. The first place we stayed was ultra luxurious. It was really fun. It was luxurious. It was kind of in the clouds. It was just recently built. So it was very contemporary architecture, super fun. And the district itself that it was in is more that kind of spooky part of older London, not far from the Tower of London. And there's a place called I think it's called the Clink, where it's underground and they have these like wax figures of prisoners. And it's kind of just has kind of that grittier vibe. You're closer to the Jack the Ripper part of London. And then the second half of our trip, we decided to stay closer to Kensington Gardens area. And we found an older property, much older, that is on the corner across from Kensington Gardens. And it's called the Milestone. And we had a room, but the kids were old and gangly-legged, big enough to, we couldn't share a couple big beds anymore. So our room was actually a 2-room kind of U-shaped area. And if you can imagine it, there was our room, and then you take a couple stairs down, and there was a little hallway, and then you'd take stairs up, and you'd be in the kids' room. So we couldn't visibly see each other from our suites, but you could definitely hear each other because we didn't have a door between us in that sense. So the first night we were there, I had dreams that were normal, but it was, nothing remarkable. And the next day, when we were getting ready to go out doing our touristy thing, I went in the girls' side of the hotel, and their clothes were folded, their beds were made, the bathroom was meticulous. I mean, and if you have two kids that share a small space, especially when you're traveling, it was kind of shocking because usually I go into their room to tidy up so that it's not a complete mess and there aren't clothes on the floor if the maid service is coming while we're out. So I was kind of shocked. So then the next night happened and I started having dreams of a little girl. And I didn't think anything of it, but I was woken up because I kept hearing, "Mama, Mama," and I thought it was one of my kids. So I got up 2 or 3 times in the night, walked down the stairs from our suite, walked through the tiny hallway, and then up the stairs where I found the kids sound asleep. Again, their clothes were put away. Everything was folded and neat as a pin. But I went back to my room and had kind of a restless second night of sleep. The third night of our stay there at the Milestone, I fell asleep like normal that night, and I woke up again to the sounds of "Mama, Mama," cries of "Mama," and I checked them, the kids, and they were tucked in, they were dead asleep, went back to sleep, and I don't remember having a dream. I just woke up with the feeling of a little hand in my hand because I had stretched my hand out and it was hanging over the bed and under, it was exposed to the air because it wasn't under the covers. And I felt this little hand in mine and it was cold. And so I squeezed it back and I opened my eyes, and on the side of the bed was a little girl with dark hair, curls, not quite ringlets, but very curly hair, and a white dress. And she was calling me Mama. And I remember thinking, she just needs to know that there's some mama energy here, and I am willing to give it back. So I just held her hand for a little bit and I fell back asleep. So I knew I had experienced this. And you remember the deal I had with my kids where we do not talk about any kind of supernatural, spooky stuff until we've checked out. Well, that day, the next day, was when we were leaving to go back home to Seattle. And we had barely shut the door to the cab that was going to take us to Heathrow. And my husband was helping to put our luggage away in the back of the car. And the girls just started they were just staring at me with these giant eyes, just ready to tell me what had happened to them. And so on the drive to Heathrow, they told me what had been occurring in their room and what they had been observing. So the first thing they both said was, "Mama, you had a white orb that was following you around our room the entire stay. It was this white ball of light that just kept everywhere you went, it was right behind you. It was just trailing behind you the entire visit." And it was kind of creepy. And then I said, "Well, how come you guys were keeping your room so neat?" That was kind of a change. And they said that they had an older lady, like a much older lady, a very severe nurse or governess type energy that was basically keeping them in line. They were terrified of her, and they felt like she was judging them. And so they had to brush their teeth extra well, tidy up around the hotel room. They were pretty nervous about her. So then I told them about the little girl that I'd woken up to, and I was holding her hand, and they were looking at each other like, we're not surprised. And we all agreed that that had to have been the little orb of light that had been following me. So it's hard to deny that there isn't something else besides us out there, whether it's like residual energy that needed us or, I don't know, another dimension. We felt like it was older energy. So when we got back to Seattle and they were at school again, I did a little research about that property. And I found out that it used to be the home of a Russian czar. And he had a little girl that actually passed away there. And there's no doubt she probably had a governess or a nurse type person that was helping to raise her there. And that was most definitely the feeling and the experience that we had, confirmed what the history said. So I went on Travelocity and I found the hotel and I gave a review because it was incredible. The property was beautiful. It was meticulous. It was very fun to stay there. The food was great. The view was great. The location was great. But then I had this ghost experience. So I had to put that in the review. So about once a year, maybe like once every 18 months, I'll get an email back from somebody that has also stayed in that room and they experienced something as well. And they're glad to have found my review because they don't feel so crazy because maybe they're new to like having a ghost experience. We're going to have a guest on that's going to be sharing her experience, and that's Miss Molly. She's a tarot reader, and I've got links in the show notes too if you want to hear more about her, if you want to book her for your own podcast, or if you want to book her for a tarot reading. All the information's down there for you to find. Thanks for joining Curious Cat today and to tell your ghost story. So I kind of know some of this ghost story, just a smidgen, but tell me the whole scoop.
Well, it all took place like 20 years ago, but it stays with me. It's just one of those reoccurring memories that you have, even as you age and you forget a lot of other things.
Yeah, a lot of other things.
Okay, so I was in a little apartment and it looked out over kind of a local stream, almost like more like a little marshy area that sometimes had water if it was raining a lot. But, so it's kind of pretty to look out at. And I was pretty happy there, just a little studio apartment. But one day I turned the corner and there was a lady sitting on my couch. I think it was a futon at the time. That's the stage of life I was in, the futon. But she was just sitting there looking out on the scene, right? So it's a distinctive memory of her looking out the window, which is why it's important to know what was outside the window, right? Just this little green belt area. And I was just like, huh. It took a minute to register that there was somebody sitting there, right? Because I was home by myself at the time. And I think I turned around and walked back around the corner, not knowing what to do at first, like not being afraid. But then I came back and she wasn't there again.
Yeah.
But then she showed up again later at different times. And she would always sort of be sitting there looking out on this little green belt, just peacefully sitting there. And so I just let her share the space with me. I didn't try and kick her out or do any kind of thing to make her move on because she just seemed peaceful.
Okay, do you remember what she looked like and what she was wearing? And was she sitting on your actual futon?
It felt like she was sitting there. However, in this very small apartment, that would be the only place you could have a piece of furniture like that.
So like a couch could have been there.
Yeah. It makes sense if you were sitting in the room, that would be where you would be sitting.
Yeah.
I think my recollection of her is that she sort of had a 70s-ish vibe, which would be, the apartments were definitely at least that old.
Yeah.
Let's see, it would have been in the 90s. So that happened. But she was definitely dressed and her hair was sort of that not quite feathered backness of the 80s, but it had sort of that poofy, layery poofiness. You know what
Yes,
I'm talking
like
about?
that
Like not,
shag almost kind of.
yeah,
That is
yeah,
kind of late 70s, isn't it? Did
yeah.
she ever seem like she saw you or acknowledged you, or was it just like almost like a videotape that was going over and over in the same spot?
Yeah, it was almost like a hologram. Like at the
Oh
time, there
my
wasn't
gosh.
really a hologram,
Yeah.
but, or if you've done that augmented reality
Yeah. It's like
that
that.
you can do now with shops. Um, yeah, so she never acknowledged me. She was just enjoying a moment looking out the window. And so I never felt a need to disrupt her, and
Wow.
she was never there when I had other people were
Yeah,
home.
because
Uh,
okay, I full disclosure, we've been best friends for years, and we I would come over and we would do crafting and just always there and have a great time. And I never even sensed her. It was just like such a good vibe in that apartment. It was your first solo place, and
mhm.
it was beautiful. It looked out on that creek thing. It was really lovely. And when I drive by that building now, when my kids used to do fencing way back in the day, we would have to drive by there sometimes to go get food after. And I think of you in that apartment. And I've always wondered if other people, like, did you ever hear from neighbors, if they ever sensed anything or anything like that?
No, not really, but it wasn't really the kind of community where you saw your neighbors.
Yeah.
Everyone was working professionals or in school or something, and
Yeah.
so coming and going in their own little world. So,
Yeah.
but I drive by there when when I'm going here or there,
Yeah.
and I resist the urge to drive back to where the
Really?
apartment was. Like,
Yeah.
you have to turn into a street and stuff. But it's interesting that I've never gone back there. It's almost like I
Yeah.
don't want to disrupt my feeling of peace that was
Right.
there, right? And I wouldn't
Wow.
want to see. I don't
So,
know.
something
I
else
just, but
maybe.
like I drive by and see other places I've lived, but for some reason, that particular place, I can't ever go back and look at it. And I don't know if it has anything to do with the
Yeah.
ghost, but it definitely has an energy
Wow.
about it.
Oh my gosh. Oh, thanks for sharing that. And I love that I kind of share in part of that as well. I'm going to be having you back on Curious Cat, by the way, for our very special season 3, because you and I drove through by Mount Shasta when you were helping me to move from Seattle down to Northern California. And I don't know if you remember, but I was like, we got to get through this area. This area wants to hang on to us. There was like a winter storm that was coming through. And I'm like, I don't care if we have to stop. We're not going to stop. So anyway, you'll be coming back for that very special season 3 because it's so apt. So tell everybody where they can find you and tell them about your podcast.
Well, I co-host the TanglePod podcast, and I co-host with another certified Zentangle teacher, Juliet. We are focused on creativity, um, using the Zentangle method, but also just how does focus, relaxation, and creativity play together. And a really important piece of what we talk about is the practice and enjoying the practice and not worrying about what the product is going to be. Just as almost as a form of like a prescription,
Yeah.
like instead of taking a pill,
Yeah.
prescribe yourself some creative time.
And you're doing something really special for Inktober, and it's not too late for people to just enjoy it.
Right. Yeah, we did sort of a twist on Inktober because I know that one of the fun things about Inktober is seeing everyone's interpretation of the um, the words, like
Yeah.
the daily prompts.
Yeah.
And what we wanted to do was make give people a way to bring it back to their time spent creating that artwork rather than having it be a stressful thing about should I post this or should I not post this or,
Did I miss a
focusing
day?
on the end result. So we give lots of tips on, in particular, using tangles from the Zentangle method and how you can find cadence and breath and a lovely pattern when you're doing the drawing. Like there's always sort of a connection to how you move the pen and how you breathe. And you get a lot more from doing some short exercises that we offer.
It's incredible. And just to give a pitch for it, it's also like, because I've done one of your Zentangle classes, and it's like a micro meditation. And the way you even have to tune into your body to relax it whenever you sense tension, to just take a deep breath and release that. It's incredible. So thanks for what you're
Yeah.
doing. And I love your podcast. And I'm so glad you came on to do your ghost story with us.
Oh, thanks for inviting me. It's fun to see Curious Cat and all of the adventures into this other
Oh,
world that you do.
oh my God. Just wait until you listen to our special Halloween episode. I can't even believe the story that's unfolding. It's still unfolding about this nun that was haunting this, church in Fresno, and how hopefully we've brought Sister Ironita some peace. But anyway, I can't even believe I got to be a part of it. I just feel really, so who knows where this
I
thing's going to take me.
Well, you can't believe it, but I can
Oh.
because I have been a part of your supernatural journey and interests and books and dreams and all of that forever.
For the
So
long haul.
literally.
I
Okay, we
know.
won't go into that,
I
but
know, it's so true. That's another podcast episode. I love you so much. Thanks for being
oh, me
here.
too. All
Okay,
right,
talk
thanks.
soon. Bye. All right. This one happened, I would guess, about 11 or 12 years ago. And I'm only saying that because in my mind, I can see what age my kids were at the time. And they were old enough to be really down for going to San Francisco and enjoying the city and all the great food and museums. And while we were there, we all wanted to do the Alcatraz tour. So we had gone down to the harbor. And if you've done it, then you take the little boat ride across to Alcatraz. And they already are getting you in the mindset of what it would feel like to be going to prison there. And we walked around, they give you the audio tour. So we each had our headphones on, and we were definitely hoping for a ghostly kind of experience because we watched Ghost Adventures, and it just felt kind of like we could all be brave together because it was in the daytime and we didn't think anything was going to happen. So, going into one of the bigger buildings with lots of the cells, they put, invite you to go into the isolation cell. And that definitely had a creepy feeling, but nothing specifically happened to me there. I didn't have anything pulled or tugged, or I didn't feel any cold air around me. And somehow I had messed up my audio tour and the syncing of where we were walking. And so I was doing things about 5 minutes before it was coming on the audio tour. So he came into a big space, and I knew it was a cafeteria. It was obvious it was a cafeteria. And I was standing in the middle, and everybody else in the family was kind of around in other places. And I felt this sharp pain right in my windpipe. I mean, it was so sharp, like somebody was, holding something cold and sharp against my windpipe. And it made me just immediately start coughing and hacking for air. And I actually had to apologize to everybody and leave the space and get fresh air. So I went out of the building, stood in the yard out there, the grass, and I slowly got that feeling finally went away in my windpipe, and I was able to breathe again. And we didn't have any cell phone service when we were on the island for the tour. And one other thing that I thought was interesting about the tour is when we were in the big area with all the cells, there aren't any windows, but at the up above, there were windows that let in fresh air, but you can't see out them. There's physically no way for the prisoners to have seen out them, but you could hear the noise of the tourists and everything carried across the water. So it would be a sad kind of torture to be hearing people having everyday fun in sunny days in San Francisco while you are incarcerated there. So we get on the boat. My throat is still feeling kind of weird. I just was kind of creeped out about what exactly had happened to me. And it did say later in the tour when it caught up that that's where a lot of attacks happened, was in the cafeteria. People would bring other prisoners would have these like homemade shivs that they would attack people with. So I don't know if somebody died there or was hurt, and attacked in their throat there. But when the boat landed and we got off the boat and we were back into, that touristy area with like Ghirardelli Square and everything, my cell phone, registered a voicemail and I listened to it, and it was from the kennel where my dog, he was a golden retriever and he was in his older years at the time. Quincy, he was staying at the kennel where he always stays. The cats always stay. They do an incredible job. So they had called me really concerned because he had at the exact same time as me, he had a crazy breathing problem, and it was in his throat. They couldn't tell what happened, but he stopped breathing and they were really concerned about him. And they were calling, and by the time I called them back, they said he had recovered from it and they didn't know what had happened, but it was definitely something that happened in his throat. And they checked to make sure he wasn't choking on something, and everything looked all clear in his windpipe. So it was kind of weird because my dog and I are super close. I love all dogs, but the dogs that we have in our family and I are super close. I love them so much. I think of them as people, and that we had the same kind of stabbing or some sort of attack in our windpipes at the same time, 3 states away, was really, really odd. Hi, today we are joined, or tonight, depends on when you're listening, with Miss Molly Knows. Her motto is "Know that you know." And I love that. She's an intuitive psychic medium. She does private readings and conducts workshops. Her journey began after a near-death experience when she was 3 years old. She is a delight and was a recent guest on Leslie Fear's podcast, Because I Want to Know. So check that out next. Welcome to Curious Cat, Molly.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
I'm glad you're here. You have a couple good ghost stories.
Lots of them. But I can start out with one that actually is part of where my journey as a psychic medium, as a career, really began.
I would love that. I'd be honored.
Awesome. Yeah. So I've had abilities all my life, as you mentioned. I had a drowning incident when I was 3, which if we have time, I can certainly talk about that as well. But it kind of was something all my life. I had this ability. I never understood it. And then about 2019, May of 2019, it started to kind of ramp up in my life. And I had to start really giving it some credence. And I couldn't ignore it any longer.
Yeah.
So it just started to become one of these things that just every day more and more things were happening. So this starts the story in December of 2019, right when the pandemic was just starting to kind of show up, and a lot of strange energy in the universe.
Yeah.
And I had woken up one morning about, it was actually the day before Christmas Eve, I remember. There had been a story on the news running about this woman who had gone missing in our area. I lived on the central coast of California. And I hadn't really paid much attention to it. I saw it, but nothing. But you know how the news runs those loops?
Yeah.
And I woke up the next morning and the same loop was on about this woman. And suddenly I start hearing somebody saying in my ear, "Go find her. You have to find her. You have to go look for her. You have to go find her." And I'm sitting there going, "Wait, what?" Wait a minute. Now this is everyday stuff with me. But at the time, it was something I had not experienced yet. And my boyfriend at the time was sitting on the couch, and he turns and looks at me. He says, What is going on with you?" And I said, "Oh, we got to go find this woman." And he says, "What?" And I said, "Somebody's telling me to find her. Like I'm supposed to know where she is." So I got a piece of paper out and I started writing all these details down about this person, I think. And I'm
Yeah.
writing it all down. And so all of a sudden, I see a red compact car in my mind, as if I'm sitting in this car. And it was tilted forward in this kind of precarious position in these trees. And I could see that it was kind of tilted down towards a ravine. And it was sort of stuck in these tree branches. And I knew that I was not able to move safely. So it was as if I had suddenly stepped into this other person's
Skin.
situation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
situation.
And so dangling from the mirror, I saw this Asian looking amulet, like those jade ones sometimes you see in restaurants or, whatever, with a red tassel hanging from the bottom. And it was sort of hanging from the rearview mirror. And I was panicky, hitting my horn and getting really angry and frustrated. And I had some water in the car and I was sort of sipping on it when I could. And I had realized that all these sunsets had gone by and it was getting very cold and very rainy. And that why wasn't anybody finding me? I was very upset. And I was thinking about my friends and I was thinking about the animals at the shelter and the volunteer work I had done and these friends I had and why was this happening to me? And so as I was writing all this down, I snapped out of it and I turned to my boyfriend and I said, we have to find Jilly Bean.
Jelly bean?
Jilly Beans.
Wow.
Jilly Beans. And he says, what? And I said, it's that lady that went missing. I think I know where she is. So we grabbed these blankets and food and water and pylons and all this. I don't know. I was just on automatic. I started grabbing all these things out of the apartment to take with us. And I give my boyfriend credit because he went along with it. He could tell I wasn't kidding around.
Mm-hmm.
So we get in the car and we drive about 45 minutes north of where we lived along the coast. And in my mind, I kept seeing this piece of metal, like a piece of culver that was curled into a scrap sort of on the side of the road.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew that would be a signal and that she had reached over to grab something or an animal ran. I don't know. Something happened where I know there was a sudden movement of the steering wheel and she jerked too fast and went flying off the road. And nobody had been able to find her thus far because the way that she went off the road, there were no skid marks per se. It's like she kind of just launched.
Mm-hmm.
And so I knew that too. So we went up the road and I looked at a map and for some reason I knew the area. And as we were driving, sure enough, we pull up and there's that piece of metal I visualized in the exact spot I thought it was. So we pull over, we get out, we start yelling all this stuff. We're not finding it. So we kept doing this all day. We drove all over the area, and every time I kept coming back to the same spot, and we still couldn't find her. And at this point, it was getting cold, it was getting wet out. And then right about, I don't know, around 3-ish, I started to feel really sad. And this energy took over me, and I started shivering so hard I couldn't stop. And I was trying to catch my breath, and I said to my boyfriend, I feel like I'm drowning. And as I mentioned to you, I had a near death experience where I did drown. So I knew what I was feeling. And it just was this crazy energy. And then all of a sudden it was just quiet, done. Okay. And so I looked at him and I said, I think that's it. And he said, yeah, I feel it too. So we get back in the car and we're on our way home. And all of a sudden we look at each other and we say, what the F? And we were almost home. And it was as if there was a weird time slip where we lost 30 miles of driving. We both experienced it.
Oh my gosh.
And we look at each other like, what in hell just happened?
Yeah.
So we get home and we're very upset, very upset. And we turn the television on. And sure enough, not soon after I had that moment, they had just found her at the bottom of the lake.
Oh my gosh, that gave me goosebumps.
Yeah, exactly what had happened was the car had, gone forward and gone. She probably was trying to get out, figure out a way to get out of the car, whatever. And she went, down to the bottom. It was very crazy. And I remember we were both just stunned and sad and all of these things. So I say to him, I don't know what I'm supposed to do with this. I feel like I failed. I don't know where I'm supposed to go with this. He says, well, why don't you see if there's someone who might be able to help you? And it so happens that there was a metaphysical store or place not too far from where we lived. And as I was looking online, I found out that weekend there was a workshop with this guy that does channeling. I didn't know what that was at the time. And I said, oh, okay, I'll go to that. So I go to this thing and I get there. There's about 20 people kind of sitting in a circle, and nobody knows each other. We don't introduce ourselves or anything like that. And he said, the store's closed. It's after hours. And the guy says, okay, so I'm going to explain to you about, what I do. And he explained how he channels a particular spirit, and that the spirit talks through him and so forth. And that he was going to show us how to do that, blah, blah, blah. So he had us do an exercise where we got to meet spirit guides. And I did have an experience. I did meet two of them, and one of which turned out to be the woman that I saw when I had my near-death experience when I was a child. And she introduced herself to me, and it was kind of wild because I had almost forgotten about it. And there she was. So,
really?
Yeah. So we're sitting in this big room of 20 or so people, and he does his example of channeling with this particular person, and it was pretty interesting. And it was like this little makeshift closet he had set up with PVC pipe and sort of like heavy velvet curtains to kind of give you privacy. And you go in there, and then you sit there and you channel the energy.
Yeah.
So he says, so who wants to go? And I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, no, I don't want to. No, I don't want to. And as I'm thinking that, I'm feeling this urge of, you should. And then he turns and looks right at me and says, there's a spirit here that says you need to go in. And I went, all right. I don't know what to think, right? So we go in there, and I close the curtain. And as soon as I close the curtain, I start feeling all this crazy energy. And I'm just this is totally new to me. And all of a sudden, he says, who are we speaking with right now? And I say, well, I'm Hacha, of course. Hacha. And that was the spirit guide I had met in the exercise. And so he says, well, Hacha. And of course, I have this crazy Yiddish sort of German accent going that I'm not German. I don't know German.
Oh my gosh.
So I'm hearing myself talking, sort of like I'm outside myself, watching myself do this in this dark closet. And she starts talking to every single person in the room. And I can't see anybody from where I'm sitting because I'm in this curtained room. But somehow I can see them in my mind. And I'm speaking to each of them very personally, talking about things that, like their dog or the cookies they made last week or the this or the that. And I go all the way around the room, apparently, talking to all these people in a very kind of overbearing German accent. Very funny, very jovial.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm sitting there going, what is happening here? So I get to the end, and I guess he says, okay, Hansha, thank you for showing us you were here, blah, blah, blah. It's time to close down, whatever, and bring Molly back. And as he's saying that, she says, no, I'm not done. And I keep talking. And he says, no, it's time to stop. So he finally, whatever he says, closes it out. And I'm sitting there, and I'm drenched in what feels like sweat.
Yeah.
And I'm shaking and buzzing. And it's very cold that night. So it was kind of weird. And I put my hand around my neck, like to feel the sweat. And it's like this slimy, I don't know what. I'm guessing ectoplasm. I have no idea what it was, but it was weird jelly-like film on me. So I come out of this closet thing, and everybody's just agog, including myself. And I walk back to my chair, and I sit down, and I'm trying to hold it together, and I'm trying not to cry. And he says, okay, well, that was interesting, kind of thing. And he says, who would like to go next? So this little mousy lady kind of goes, I think I should go in there. She had set a peep all night. Very shy, quiet woman. She goes, very quietly walks in there. She says, I don't know why I'm doing this. Closes the curtain. The whole thing starts. And she says, she's muttering. And then she says, Molly, the lady of the lake says, thank you.
Oh my goodness. Oh,
my arm hair standing up as I tell you this.
My arm hair is literally standing up too. That's exactly what you had to go there to hear.
And as she said it, I felt a hand on my shoulder, which was funny because I was up against a wall, like the chair was against a wall.
Right.
So I knew, obviously what that was. So afterwards, in the meantime, I'm crying. It's dark in there, so nobody sees me crying, but I'm freaking out.
Yeah.
And so after the whole session's over and a couple other people in there and whatever, nothing like what happened to me. I walk up to her and I said, "Hey, I just want to say thank you for that message. It was for me and I understood it." And she said, "Oh, I don't even know, oh, you're Molly, oh, this kind of thing." So I go home, I tell my boyfriend the whole story. I'm pretty tripped out about the whole thing.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to think, like, who is Hacha? Like, what a weird name, right?
Yeah, it's such an unusual name.
Yeah. Some reason I thought my mom, for some reason I feel like my mom would know this. So I texted my mother and I said, "Hey mom, do you know who Hansha is?" She says, "Oh yes, that's your grandma Yetta, Henrietta. She used to go by Yetta and sometimes she went by Hansha, which in German and Yiddish is head of the household or the boss.
Is
You heard
that
of the
where
head
we
honcho?
Yeah, head
Yeah.
honcho. That's exactly what
Yeah.
I was just gonna ask.
So, but
Oh
she
my
went by
goodness.
Hansha. So she says, "Yes, that's your great great grandmother." Remember, we
Oh,
used to have a picture of her by the piano. And I said, "Oh, that's why she looks so familiar to me." Like I didn't connect it right away. And I said, "Well, when did she die?" And my mom says 1933. Well, 33 has always been my number since I
it
can remember.
has.
For no reason, it's always been my number. So I thought that was very interesting.
Yeah,
So,
it's super interesting.
well, as it turns out, as a spirit guide for me, she's the one who pushes me to do things I don't want to do because she's
Oh,
fussy and pushy that way.
and she was that night.
Yes. So later on, the news after they found this woman, I was watching the news, of course, at that point, so I was very interested. And as it turned out, some of the things I had written down, actually all of them, were absolutely true, including the fact that this woman worked in an animal shelter and she had worked at a college and she specialized in Asian studies and helping with the Asian studies department. So the amulet hanging from her mirror made total sense. I don't know if
It
there really was one, but at
Yeah.
least symbolically it was there.
I have no doubt, Molly, that it had to have been there because your whole experience, it's like you literally jumped into that place and you were even feeling everything like the cold, the panic, the concern about the animals that she wouldn't be able to take care of. I mean, so I have no doubt that that tassel was there with the jade piece. There's no doubt.
Yeah, I never did contact the family. Of course, it's a very touchy subject. I
Oh,
wouldn't want to
yeah.
upset anybody, but I
Right.
did feel like, I definitely connected in some way. So that was
Hmm.
quite interesting.
God, that's amazing. But you, after that crazy story, you said you have another story too. So I'm greedy.
Ever since then, pretty much, I've become like a spirit magnet. I have stuff happen all the time. It's just crazy. But I have a fun one that's about,
Yeah,
and it's kind of about Halloween in a sense.
that'd be fun.
I used to work at a Halloween store or a costume novelty store with a friend of mine I met many years ago, and I used to always help out during the Halloween season. Whenever she was busy New Year's, also had party supplies, and I knew her for many many years. This lady named Sue, and we became very close. And she was like family to me. And a few years back, she ended up having finding out that she had stage 4 pancreatic cancer, and
Oh,
we knew her time was limited.
mhm.
So she ended up moving away, whatever. But when we worked at the costume shop, we did a lot of pranks on each other and we did a lot of pranks on the customers. And we just both had this weird sense of humor and we would screw around with each other, especially on April Fool.
Oh
April
my God.
Fools, we would post up these weird ads, on social media. And we'd have like a fart machine by the door when people left and, just silly stuff, during April Fools. And we would joke with each other too. And so this last April, my boyfriend and I just moved into the house I'm in now, just bought it. And on March 31st, that night, in the middle of the night, I always wake up at 3:33 a.m. That's a thing for me. Like I said, 33 is my number.
Yeah.
And so I wake up, and right as I wake up, the burglar alarm in the house starts going off. Now, we don't know the code. We've never hooked it
Oh
up. We don't
no.
have a
Oh,
subscription. We've never
oh, that's
used it. It's we don't have
no.
anything to do with it. So we wake up, and I say to my boyfriend, I swear it was 3:33. I'm going to flip out. And he goes, right. So as we walk out there to try to figure out how we're going to turn this thing off, because we don't even know what company or anything, um,
Oh.
I look, and sure enough, yes, it's 3:33. And I'm like, awesome, great. So we literally had to get a pair of wire cutters and get up and cut the wires to the alarm to shut it off because we didn't know what to do. We didn't know code. We didn't know
of course not. No.
so we cut the wires and it finally shuts off and we're like, what the hell, And after we do that, then the pad, which apparently is in the laundry room, starts going off, beeping and making all kinds of crazy noises. So I run back there and I just, for no other reason that I didn't know what else to do, I type in 333 and it shuts off.
No.
Because I didn't know what else to do. I'm like, I don't know what to do with this silly thing. So I
Let's try my number.
Right.
Oh
and shuts
my gosh.
off. So we're both like kind of laughing, and that was weird, whatever, we get back in bed. And as I'm falling asleep, I hear somebody go, April Fool. And I say to Jeff, hey, did you hear that? He goes, no. And I told him what I heard. And he goes, wow, who do you think that is? And I didn't connect it right away. I go, I don't know. But I appreciate that, y'all. I'm trying to sleep. So the next morning, I'm in the shower and I've got my music going, whatever, and I had it on random play. And all of a sudden, this song comes on that is not on my playlist. And it's Herb Alpert and the Tijuana Brass, Whipped Cream, with some dorky, corny song, which Stu used to love Herb Alpert when we were in the costume shop.
No.
So that's when I connected what it was. I went, oh, that's Sue. And I thought it was so funny. So I text her widower, who I'm still friends with, and I said, guess what? Sue visited me last night. She set my alarm off. And he goes, that's so funny. She did something to me too. I don't remember what it was now. It was something silly like that. Not the same thing. But he said she did something to me last night too. And he said, I don't doubt it. That's so funny. So that's my good story. I thought it was like.
Okay, that is so beautiful. And she's like, I can do some major April Fool's Day pranks now that I am spirit. I can get everybody at the same time.
She's done a few of them over the years, different ways, but not like that.
Do you think part of her pranking too, because it's your guys' tradition and her tradition with her husband, that it was she kind of wanted you guys to get back in touch with each other?
Oh yeah,
probably.
And we've been pretty good about it over the years. But yeah, it had been a while since I had talked to him. So yes, it was definitely time to give him a hello, and it's always nice to talk to him. Yeah.
Oh, that's so amazing. You're like a little superhero, is what I see. You're something so
You're so sweet.
You're something so special. Oh, I just love you so much.
I have thousands of stories like this. It's crazy.
Wow.
Just the last 3 years has been insane. Even last night we had something happen here.
There's never a dull moment with you.
No, and people honestly think I'm kind of odd, and then they're around me for a while, and they're like, whoa, you're not kidding. I'm like, I tell you guys, I'm not making this stuff up.
Oh my gosh. Ghost Adventure should just have you on because then they can actually have some activity with you around.
That's so funny. I just reached out to a show today that I saw, and the guy's like, yeah, I'd love some help. I'm like, great. Here I am.
Wonderful. I know. You have such great energy. Hey, so thank you for sharing your amazing stories. Where can people reach you and let them know where to reach you?
Sure. Pretty much on any social media. I'm on TikTok is my main platform, but I use Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, not too much, Instagram. Miss Molly Knows, KNOWS, just like, Miss Know That You Know.
Yeah,
and I also have a website, missmollyknows.com. If you're interested in a private reading or some of the other things that I offer, there's also a blog there. I do teach, as you said, workshops on occasion. I do demonstrations on my TikTok quite frequently if you catch me on a live. And actually coming up for Halloween on the 30th, we are doing a spirit box session, myself and another medium, Michelle the medium, who's amazing, at 8:30 p.m. Eastern time, which is a ton of fun. We always have interesting things come through. Last time we did it, we both had our headsets on at the same time, and we said the same name at the exact same time, not even knowing it. Leslie Fear was actually moderating for us at the time.
Oh my gosh. I just appreciate you being here. You have to promise, please come back for a full segment of Curious Cat sometime.
You bet. And you can ask me any old time. I always have a story.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you. And happy Halloween to you.
You too. Thank you so much. I'm excited.
You're welcome. Bye. I'd like to round out our special tribute of Art Bell's Ghost to Ghost with my last ghost story that I feel comfortable sharing here. And it is about some strange occurrence that happened to me when I was just trying to get some milk and some bread at the grocery store. So it was the middle of the afternoon, and I had stopped dead in my tracks I was researching an episode, the shadow figure and sleep paralysis episode that is in season 2. And I don't know why, but I needed to get to the grocery store and wanted to be there before the lunch rush. So I pull in and the parking lot is mostly empty. So I was glad about that. And as I went to get my 3 items, I honestly don't remember what they were. I think there was like milk and bread and maybe something in the middle aisle, something frozen. So I was in 3 different parts of the store and there were hardly any other shoppers. And for every item, I kept running into like this old, much, much older man. And there was a young man standing behind him, and he was really gaunt. He was really, really tall and thin. And his skin was this almost like if you have a yellow candle that's been in a sunlit windowsill for, years, how it turns that yellowy, waxy color. That's what his skin looked like. And the young man was dressed in a tank top and some basketball shorts. And he had socks on, like white socks and some tennis shoes. And he was always behind the old man and over to the right of the old man. And the old man was just like, just slowly shopping around the grocery store. Then I went to get item number 2. And they were in the middle of the aisle. Again, it was the back of the old man and then the young man right behind him to the right side of him. And I just kind of tried to do my shopping and not be in their way. I just was grabbing a couple things super quick, but it was hard because they were standing in the middle of the aisle. And I went to the 3rd place in the grocery store, and there they were again, the duo. When I went to check out, I thought there's no way they're going to be here. They were in the self-checkout part. I just assumed, and it was wrong of me, that the older man would probably want to have the cashier, he had no business at that point, do it for him. But he was in the self-check area, and he was standing right in the middle of all the kiosks. And the young man was there, the same young man, same strange young man. And I had to kind of wriggle around him to get to the open little place to check out. And so I did glance over to the right, and the young man his eyes were like completely black pupils. And it was like mercury, like a black metal mercury instead of silverish. And so I looked away and I thought, that was really strange. And it kind of made my heart beat fast. And the old man was just kind of struggling to get to his checkout. And then for some reason, as I was checking out, I looked over to the right to see if they had made their way to the side. And the young man had his left arm hanging loose to his side, and his right arm he had crossed over his chest, and his hand was holding his upper arm. Well, he let go of that arm and put it to the side also, and on his arm was this perfect patch of bear fur, like the bear, like a wild bear, super thick, only it was shaped like the infinity symbol. And that really freaked me out. I knew this was something not human. So I finished my checking out. I raced out to my car. I said, "You don't have permission to follow me." I don't know why. I just felt like I needed to establish that boundary. Got in my car and I played 80s music all the way home and sang at the top of my lungs to be vibrating super high and be done with it. So I put away my 3 grocery items once I was home in like a split second, went upstairs and started doing my work in my art loft. And I started doing some research about what other cultures think the shadow figures are that come to people when they're having these sleep paralysis episodes. And one culture believes that these are jinn, Jinn. And I didn't know a lot about jinn. I knew that the word genie was a corruption of the word jinn, but I didn't know much else. So I started doing a deep dive for the episode, and I found out that jinn will, they're like other entities. They're not necessarily all good or all bad. They can be either, both, a mix. They sometimes find a human and they have kind of a symbiotic relationship with them where they're taking something from them, but they're also giving something to them in order to sustain their life. And that was the feeling I got. And I thought to myself, that was probably a jinn at the grocery store that I encountered. But the capper was at the end of one of the articles I found about jinn. And they said that they're really good at disguising themselves as humans. But what they don't quite get right is the skin, which was true in this case. And they will sometimes have strange patches of animal fur on them. And that is definitely what that young man had. So that was my jinn encounter. And then on top of it, that was the universe knowing exactly what I was about to research and thinking this will be really fun for her to encounter today. So I hope we gave you goosebumps today. I want to say thank you to the amazing women, Kelly and Miss Molly, that were a part of this special tribute to Art Bell Ghost to Ghost for sharing their stories here. Their links to their podcasts and their work, their website is down in the show notes. So please give them a link and give them a follow. Next week, we'll be shifting into holiday mode. We're going to kick off with a Day of the Dead tribute to my cat, Romeo. And we're going to go into some holiday stress reduction guide for you and some other beautiful things. Until next week, stay curious. I love you.
Hey, you. Yes, you. Are you looking for a new podcast that appeals to your scientific curiosity, but is also a little bit spooky?
Show me how I died in a past life.
Well, look no further, because this cat is where it's at.
He had concerns about the ethics surrounding AI, feeling they had achieved consciousness.
Curious Cat Podcast examines the shadowy space where science and the supernatural collide. Listen every week with your host, Jennifer Holtz, as she and her guests explore what it means to be a soul in a meat suit.
We were healing karma together. They were all kind of predestined to resolve something.
Listen on all your favorite streaming apps and continue the conversation on Twitter at CuriousCatPodCA, or find Jennifer and all her links at Jennifer L. Holtz, spelled HOTES.com.